Asteroid of fear.
Today I had an interesting conversation with Jack Kammer. It was my birthday, but I was initially not going to do it, but decided to do it anyway. And we just hopped right into it. Yeah, I think I did the intro somewhere in the middle, but it was a good conversation. We talked a little bit about male gender issues and yeah, hope you enjoy it.
My glasses. Sometimes that could happen.
Yes, it does. Sort of by accident sometimes.
I figured you would be early. I don't know how I guessed. I've been watching some shorts and content on you this morning.
Yeah, you figured I would be what?
Oh, I figured that you would be early. Like some of the people I've interviewed the past few days show up kind of on time or minutes after or have issues or some people.
Yeah.
Just me observing different personality types. And yeah, when I was doing the research, I was like, when I just logged in and was doing all this, I was like, I bet he'll pop in early.
Well, what was there about what you saw that tipped you off that I would be on time?
I would say your passion.
Huh.
That's
Very
one way of
interesting.
putting it. I think passion is one way, but then you could tell by, I think, some of the things you've done, some of the projects you've done, some of the things you've been a part of, they do require timeliness. I'm sure being a corrections officer, all those things.
Okay.
And there's two types. There's institutional being on time, but then there seems to be other things that you've probably participated in that had to be self-time managed, where, I think anybody who goes to school and pursues education, you don't study, you don't pass. You don't pass, you don't graduate. Um, you know, with
You're
with knowledge at the tip of everybody's fingers and people wondering what's the value of an education. Well, I have a master's, and that should tell you that I can complete things, I can see them through. It took a lot of different qualities and aspects of a person that are positive to get through that experience. I didn't float through it, I didn't pay for it, I'm not a celebrity's child or anything like that. So, you know what I'm saying?
I do indeed. I
Yeah, it
do
was a one
indeed.
year. I was in grad school with a new job management, relocated with a 1 year old. Yeah, it was challenging.
Yeah.
It wasn't the degree part, it was everything around it. It showed me how much I could juggle and what I was capable of if I really wanted.
And I imagine that your relationship with your wife was part of
The
your
success.
considerations.
Yes. I tell you, she was the one at that point in my life and our relationship with a 1 year old on the way. She was the one who encouraged me to go to graduate school because I was in a role that I quite enjoyed, but there was no. It was a senior clerk in a level one trauma center. There's no vertical or lateral movement within that. It's like being radar for on MASH. You're Mr. Fix It, Mr. Answer, support everybody in the role. But she was the one. She goes, "Well, why don't you go to graduate school?" And I was like, I really don't want to. But talking through some of the physicians and people I worked with and whatnot, I was like, well, I guess I'll give it a whirl. And my mom was working with someone who was going through the program I went through. And so I'm like, I'll check it out, and got into that. And while I was there, I ended up getting the management job because the 1 year old came along and we were like, let's move near one of our families. for some familial help and whatnot, and to expose her. And my original hometown is who called first, and that's how we ended up back in my hometown. But yeah, even with podcasting, end of July will be 2 years of podcasting. And there was a moment, I don't think, there was a moment when she didn't understand it. But when I kind of told her, hey, I'm the same person that you supported through graduate school and all that. If I tackle this with the same tenacity, I'm the same guy. I just want to do something different. I don't want to participate in the corporate world. I would rather focus on trying to be more flexible, saying yes and no to the opportunities I want to, so I can try to be a more present, better father, husband, because my daughter's 11, and this was in like 2020 when I got laid off and was deciding what I was going to do. And it was like, she's going to be 18 in 7 years. This is the time I want the flexibility. I want to be able to say yes and no. I want to be able to attend all her school functions and be there for her as much as possible. If I want to go 9 to 5, when she turns 18 and takes on her own life, I can do 9 to 5 then. But right now, I decided after being laid off and going through making poor choices, dealing with it poorly through alcohol, et cetera, et cetera. Once I came to my senses, I learned that, hey, this is what's important. This is how I want to do it. And once I kind of stopped drinking, started exercising and pursuing it with passion, got my head out of my ass, and my wife saw that and started supporting it. Yeah, I mean, where was I at the beginning of 2 years of healthcare? Same place I am 2 years of podcasting. But where was I at the end of 12 years? Much further. So I'm just trying to enjoy the process along the way, and she supports it. And I do what I can to bring income, whether it's odd jobs at Uber and different things, participate in studies, do a little home healthcare giving. But the biggest thing is I'm not kind of participating in a system, and I get to say yes and no to what I want, and I get to be the father and husband I want to be. And it wouldn't be possible without her. I can tell you that.
Well, that's very admirable all the way around, for you wanting to do what you want to do and knowing what's important, and for her to support you. How is she doing with, I mean, there must be some stress involved with being married to a man who was laid off during COVID, hasn't been able to find a job, and who is on a long uphill learning curve and success curve.
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably not making much, if any, money on this podcast yet.
Nah, not a ton. But the thing was I actually turned down some jobs. I could have had jobs, but we didn't want to relocate as a family. We decided what was important, and I think it was stressful, yes, but at the same time, and I think it kind of remains stressful. But when you can look at the perspective of things, of everything's kind of scaled, of we make less, but we pay less for our health insurance. I mean, I used to work for a healthcare company that robbed you every 2 weeks for seeing the people that you manage. And,
Jeez.
And so when you scale it all back and you look at everything, it's, it's like taking a quarter step back. But if you just make your needs a little less, like our vehicles and things are paid for. Just
Well,
stuff like that.
I got two questions. One, is your wife bringing in some income?
Yes.
Okay, good. And she's okay with that?
Yeah. We both bring in income. We both have. Yeah, I do. I mean, I do employment, so I have a little bit. It's not a
Okay.
ton, but yeah.
I got you. Well, it sounds like you got a great wife, and God love her. Um, Another question would be, so you've had to cut back,
Mm-hmm.
and you've probably cut back on a lot of things that you have. Well, that's the question. Have you found that a lot of the things you cut back on are things you didn't really need, you really didn't really want, but you just sort of thought they would make you happy, but they didn't really. They weren't essential at all.
Yeah, partially. And then, I can tell you too, today I'm 2 years alcohol free, giving up alcohol. You're not spending money on that. And then also, when I lost my job and different things, over the course of the past couple of years, when I've gone on this journey, quit alcohol, I've lost 64 pounds, cut from 9 prescriptions to one. You're saving money that way. So I just required less. I became a cash pay patient until we got insurance. I would go necessary enough what was required to get my medication. Then I started working on losing weight, getting off medication, so I required less. Um, Less requirements means less out. So it took me, you had to take a good look in the mirror and go, what can I do? What's not serving me? What's serving me? Am I being all I can be? Am I being the best person to me? What am I showing my family of what's important to me? What am I showing my daughter? She was the one. I can remember filling out an application to go back to the company who laid me off. And she goes, "Do you really want 2 and 3 a.m. phone calls again? Why don't you start a podcast?" And I went ahead and applied to the job, and probably within half an hour, it was less than an hour, they had already said no. I was like, well, I guess I'll start a podcast. But my daughter goes to an art school, and they have stuff where the junior high kids write plays. They do run all the sound, all the visual type stuff. And so I want this to kind of be a long-term thing, something I could bring her into. She's the one who showed me how to use CapCut. So yeah, I don't know. Long term, I would like to have some sort of family business that included her, that was artistic in this form, out trying to help people through conversations and perspective, and about identifying what's really important. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human, and we all want to love and be loved, and we're all just trying to do the best we can, and making, you know, mountain.
So you said your daughter is what? Did you say she's 11?
Yeah.
Okay, so she's a girl growing up in the United States of America in 2025, and she's being bombarded with advertising and marketing and influencers telling her what she needs to have so she can be happy. How has she responded to the fact that you've had to cut back on some things, including probably some things that she would have liked to have had because the influencers told her she should?
I think I don't know where this started, but at some point when I felt she was able to understand things a little better, I think slowly starting to introduce concepts of like sometimes she'll go out and she'll be like, "Oh, I didn't get anything." Or we can go in a store and I don't find nothing. I go, "Just because we came in the store doesn't mean you have to leave with anything. It's okay to look." And I felt like I started introducing that long ago, and it's finally arriving. And I think a lot of it, especially the past 2 years, when I think about losing weight, doing the podcast, um, I have to think about, anytime I thought about quitting or anything like that, I go, what am I showing her? And so I think by my daily habits, what I practice doing, if you spend more time creating than consuming, then you're spending less money. So I think it's by action, and I think she kind of understands that. And she gave me a Father's Day card the other day, and he wrote some stuff in there that made me feel like she's picking up what I'm putting down in terms of what's important in life and what we need.
So I listened to one of your podcasts, and you mentioned during that podcast that you got this card and that it actually made you cry a little bit.
Oh, I think I cried a little bit in the podcast, or my voice cracked a little.
Yeah. Would you be willing to read what she wrote?
No,
Too personal.
I can't.
Too personal.
Well,
Okay.
she wouldn't even let my wife read it. She told me to read it in my room alone. So it's between her and I.
Jeez, that's
Yeah.
nice. That's
Yeah.
nice. It was just between you and her.
That's it.
Wow, that's terrific. she must really value you as a dad.
She does, and I'm grateful. Yeah,
Yeah.
as today's my 49th birthday, so
Yeah.
yeah, I've had a full
Congrat-
morning, and now I get to have a conversation with you, and I'm excited about that. And then I'm going to spend some time with family. But I'm going to say, well, hey everyone, welcome to the Men of the House podcast. And today I got Jack Kammer, and yeah, I'm going to keep some of that in there because sometimes I like if we just get the conversation rolling. But I want to talk about you. Jack is a social worker and advocate for male gender issues, and there's so much out there, and kind of on the pod match, it's like, you could create an outline that of things that were like, are you a misogynist, this and that could be very controversial. But what was interesting is I was listening, doing some research this morning. One of the things that I loved was you were saying, hey, would it surprise you if there was, that there's more black males in jail than there are black women? But there's also more white males in jail than there are white women and Latino, and go across the board. And being a male is hard. And it's funny because I started talking to my wife and talking about the interview, and she's like, yeah, like, well, you guys don't have to do this, that, the other, but you guys have this. And I was kind of telling her, yeah, but that's a physiological, biological thing. But there's other social things that make it difficult to be a guy. And I've had other episodes where I've talked to people, and you had the women's movement, and they've made so much progress. And like I was telling her, it's like, women can make their own money. They don't necessarily need a man who just gives the money or provides the money. Um, and the fact that they can do that can make it more deeper. And well, now we need an emotional connection. Now, it's not what's modeled to us and what we're told about what it means to be a man. And then, like, I think some of the time frame you grow up in. I was born in 76, and so the 80s and 90s, and you're kind of seeing some of that traditional role of, my grandfather worked for the city, and my grandmother kind of waited tables, did this and that, but was kind of a homemaker. um, and maybe, like, let's say in the 80s, the Cosby Show starts coming out, and Claire's a lawyer. You have two high working professionals. Now you're seeing that on TV, and that's what you're seeing as a model, because you have women fighting their battle for equality. Um, and yeah, and so it's just been interesting. But I think, now we have to look at what's been modeled to us, what's been shown to us on TV, these movements that have kind of been happening, whether you're aware of them or not. Because I don't really think I was, until it was like pointed out, well, women have done all this stuff and men had kind of stayed the same. But now people want men to come up with all this other stuff. Now it's not just enough to provide a paycheck, or it's not, you need to check all the boxes. Um, you ask a woman what she wants. It's like, well, I want somebody who's 6'2" to 6'4", who's in finance, who makes six figures, who looks like a bodybuilder, and or whatever, a fitness model, and yada yada yada. Well, it's like, yeah, you're looking at the one of the 1%. So yeah, it's interesting how it's changed. And I have three daughters. My wife and I, we've been together 19 years, and she had a 2 and 3-year-old when we got together, and they are now 22 and 21, and we have an 11-year-old. And so, with all daughters, I'm happy that they can go out and do these things, and they don't necessarily have to rely on a man. But amidst all this, I think it's maybe now it's created a question, or maybe some confusion of, what does it mean to be a man nowadays? What is a man? You have some people saying, like, you have this kind of, if you look on Instagram or anything, you're going to see like a whole toxic side of it. And then you're going to see people who might be, I did an interview with a guy, Michael Bryan. If you haven't heard that episode, it's a great one. But his brother was an EOD tech, I believe, in the Navy. And he didn't want to, like, take a worm off or put one on when they were fishing. And he's like, but dude, you, like, been to combat, EOD, all this stuff. He goes, when I need to be that person, I can be that person. Right now, I don't want to do this. Um, and so, yeah, and to me, that really resonated with me and that's what I think about is, I look at my life of 49 years, the different iterations of it, the person I've been, whether or not I was drinking, not drinking, what I was into at the time. I mean, I can be a real motherfucker. I can be an asshole. Having been a manager, worked in level 1 trauma centers where it's all about the job, worked in restaurants, on kitchen lines, been in the military in the 90s where hazing was prevalent, and it's all about, you know, rub some dirt on it, get back in, shut your mouth when you're talking to me. That was kind of the culture I grew up on. I grew up in. And then, being a father and going through all this stuff, and you have all this workplace stuff. I mean, I've been written up for telling people the truth. What would you do if we walked out of here? Well, you'd be replaced with travel nurses. Oh, that hurt your feelings? You think a $7 billion organization is going to stop because I told you the truth, but I'm the bad guy? Like, for a fact, like, you can't just, like, you can threaten me, but I can't tell you the truth. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, but
So did that contribute to your being laid off, that you had the
no,
audacity to tell the truth?
no, no.
Okay.
It doesn't. I don't think it ever helps. But
Okay.
because it's one of those things that you know there it's no doubt, as I've kind of stepped out of the system, like if you're in corporate healthcare for 12 years and you see, like, you get training programs, there's all these trends of whatever, and things kind of change and slowly morph, and it's almost like you don't even know that they're morphing. Things you can't say, things you can't do, you can't tell the truth, you can't use these words, everything's offensive, but we got to include everybody. I mean, I come from environments where your ability to do the job is what it's based on, and people either like you or don't based on your ability to do the job. Because, I mean, like, if you're in a emergency situation in an emergency room working, either you contribute, if you're a liability to the team, then you will not be on the team. So,
Got it. Got it. And there was a lot of that in the military too.
and kitchens are the same way. Um, it's very structured and hierarchical. Um, but what's interesting is, I don't know, some people are good with that and some people aren't. I mean, it provides a level of clarity. You know what to expect, even if you don't like it. But there's a reason and a purpose. And a lot of times it's to maintain order and order within chaos, because that's what kitchens and emergencies are. And that's kind of the way it needs to be if you want it to go smooth. And when it works, you can tell that it works. When everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, instead of doing their own thing. But it's the structure that allows it. It's not really a crazy concept of a team, but it's how tight a team is. And I think with any team that is going to win at anything or be successful, there has to be a level of structure and discipline. You can't have 10 free for alls. You can't
So
have 10
in
Kobe
the
Bryants.
yeah, in the trauma center,
Mm-hmm.
were you the leader of the staff?
No, I was just a senior clerk. I was like the one non-clinical person in the sea of supporting all the clinical people. So while they're working, if you arrive on a trauma, you arrive by ambulance and they start working on you, there's going to be somebody probably cutting your clothes off, somebody sticking you in the arm, somebody checking you, somebody doing this, somebody doing that. I'm the person who's putting in the orders of the doctor's telling me what he wants. So I'm putting in the orders, sending your blood, ordering the x-rays, um, giving your insurance to whoever, locking up your stuff, talking to your family, handing it over to them, maybe sending it to the pharmacy or the safe. Could be bagging evidence if it's a crime. Um, yeah. If something's broken, when's it going to be fixed? Who's fixing it? Put in the work order, make sure everybody has what they need to take care of the patient. So I kind of take care of the staff.
Did you feel like you were appreciated for all of the bazillion details you took care of so that the medical staff could do what they were trained to do?
Absolutely. It took a little bit of time. And I think like probably with, I don't know, any type A male personality that has any sort of ego confidence and wants to do a good job, maybe you want your due a little sooner, but I think real respect takes time. And there's a point and shift, I think, in both parts of like that, and then in leadership where it could take 2 to 4 years, but there are key moments where other people, the team members around you, they know it's going to be a better shift because you're there, and they voice that to you. Thank you. I'm glad that you're here, maybe as compared to one of your other people. And so that makes you feel good. And then I think that makes you put out more. You get a little bit of validation or recognition or feedback, even that, hey, you're on the right track and we appreciate you. And then you put forth, I think, a little more effort, and, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
But you got to voice it, and that's part of leadership. And I think, um, yeah, it's so leaders. I think if you're out there, I'm big on, if you appreciate someone or somebody does something good, call it out, say something. If they're if the moment is now, if that person is there to hear it and you're here to say it, do it. Life is fragile. Chicken today, feathers tomorrow. You just don't know. So, um, it matters.
Yeah.
But how did you get into this kind of subject matter? Give me a little bit about your upbringing, because I think upbringing shines a light on what becomes maybe important to us as adults. But how did you arrive here, pursuing this kind of as a passion? And, tell me why you're passionate about it and why it's important, why male gender issues are important.
Okay, well, I can trace this all the way back to when I was a kid,
Hmm.
if you want me to go back that
Absolutely.
far.
Where did you grow up? And what was your, did your mom work? Did your dad work? Was your dad abusive, whether it's emotionally, physically? Because I think that impacts, like, broke people or hurt people. People who heal themselves often want to share it with others and help others heal. And so you have a passion for this and it comes from somewhere. So I want to know.
So the earliest memory I have of being aware of the fact that being a boy was different from being a girl, um, and detecting that there was sort of maybe some problems in store for me because of that, goes back to when I was a little boy. Now, I want to walk back a little bit to talk about what it was like for you raising girls.
Mhm.
No doubt, that it's not a good thing to say to a girl, even though it's probably not said very much these days because people sort of have gotten the message. But with your other two daughters, um, since they were being raised earlier, it might have happened more to them. You know that it's not a good idea to say to a girl who's good at math, gee, Susie, you're really good at math for a girl,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And you don't say, gee, Mary, you're really good at sports for a girl. Or, gee, Betty, you're really interested in science for a girl, right? We know that that's not a good thing to say. And it sort of sends a negative message, even though it's sort of wrapped in terms of a compliment. It's not really a compliment.
Yeah.
It's sort of a way of saying, wow, that's odd. That's odd. And it's almost a little bit a way of saying, if you don't want to be odd, just do what all the other girls do.
Mm-hmm.
What I used to hear as a little boy
Mm-hmm.
was, gee, Jack, you're really good with babies for a boy. For a boy. You're really good with babies for a boy. And I'm thinking, wait a second, what do you mean? What's that about? And, I had the same sort of feelings that we understand girls have when they get this left-handed compliment. They weren't really giving me a compliment saying, well, Jack, you're really good with babies it's really great to see a boy who's good with babies. It's like, wow, you're really good with babies for a boy. Like, maybe there's something wrong with you. Maybe you're odd.
Weird.
Maybe you have a personal problem. And, now what I see years and years, decades later, is that, this was an element of sexism. It was an item of sexism that basically was telling me sort of the corollary of what the left-handed compliments say to girls. Don't get into math. It's not for you. Don't get into science. It's not for you. Don't get into sports. It's not for you. Play with dolls and prepare to be a homemaker.
It's almost like segregation in a way, like you go in this line over here.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I see now is that supposed left-handed compliment I heard was really basically a way of telling me, don't get too involved with relationships and love and nurturing, because what you need to focus on is getting a job and making money.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, you mentioned a few minutes ago, and I jotted a note because I didn't want to forget it. You mentioned a few seconds ago that you're really glad that your daughters are able to make their own money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good thing all the way around. Money's a good thing. And the ability to make it's a good thing. And the independent ability to make it is a good thing, so that people cannot manipulate you or control you by their ability to make money and your inability to make money. No, that's off the table. I can make money if I want, and I can, and I do, and I will. And so, forget about controlling or manipulating me to do and be what you want. When you said that your 11-year-old daughter wrote you a birthday card that was exclusively between you and her, I thought, wow, this is so great, because this is the beginning of where men need to go in terms of being independent and able to have for themselves, by their own devices, by their own means, what they need. So, just as in the bad old days, men could manipulate women and control women by keeping them completely dependent on the men, for their food and their housing and their clothes and everything they needed. It's also true. And that's pretty much been undone. And God bless the women's movement for throwing that system out.
Mm-hmm.
There is still a system in play, though, that adversely affects men. And your birthday card is like the first crack in that wall. Because one of the ways women were able to counteract men's ability to control them financially was that women were able to sort of hold their own by making it clear that I control your emotional life. And to me, it has always seemed that if you were to draw an organizational chart of the typical American family, you would have the mother as the CEO, and the children are her clients and customers. And there's a lot of good stuff that goes back and forth between the mother and the kids. Where is the father in this organizational chart? Well, I know he's often thought of as being at the top,
He's
but
chief
I don't
of
buy it.
operations, maybe.
Well, you know, it's very
It's in the operations part. It's
yes, it's very
done.
operational. It's very operational, very transactional. The way I see it is that in this organizational chart, the father is sort of on a dotted line to the mother, because he's really just a supplier. He's just a supplier. He supplies the money to the mother, and then she makes sure that the kids get what they need, and she also makes sure that she pays the bills to the supplier. But she's the boss emotionally. And we need to change that, not because women are evil or bad. It wasn't because men were evil and bad that they wanted to sort of make sure that they had a position of, you know, of too much control, really. We need to address the fact that women have too much control over men's emotional lives.
You know, my wife and I, we've always been kind of like a team. Like, there's been times where she was the breadwinner, I wasn't, and it's flip-flopped in different times. And it's kind of like, but it's as a team, we succeed. And that's kind of been the throughput, is the teamwork. It's not about who is more, is this is a team. The outcome is the same, whether you work in an emergency room or when I was a manager. When people bicker, I go, look, we all have the same goal. The end point is the same. We're all trying to reach the same destination, but how we're going about it is just different, and we're arguing over that. So let's understand that we have the same mission, and that we just have a different viewpoint for how we're going about it, and work together.
And you must know, I think you do. I think you appreciate your wife, and you understand that she is not. She is not. She is much better in this regard than many women would be. I mean, look, there are women who would find an excuse to divorce a husband who got laid off during COVID, couldn't find a job, and then decided he's going to start a podcast and not make a whole lot of money. There are women who would divorce a father like that.
Oh, yeah.
And you got one who's not doing that, and God love her. So she's really a very sort of a new age woman, just like, you know, you and I are sort of new age men, in that we really value the importance of relationships and the essential need we have for emotional lives. So God love your wife. Hooray for her.
Man. Yeah, there is, I think, no doubt, without her, without my daughter, you know, we've been married 12 years, but together 19. I always felt like I'd be incarcerated or dead. Because I would have gotten myself into some sort of trouble somehow, some way. But, I had this post today. Somebody said, like, what are a couple of relationships that you're grateful for? And I have a best friend who I've been friends with. So if I'm 49, he'll be 49 next month, since we were 6 years old. So, 43 years we've been friends. And so we sat next to each other in first grade and we've lived together. We've been roommates in Florida, here. We've done the Dan Death March twice. We've done the Mammoth March once, like in our 20s, 30s, and 40s, like a marathon each decade. And then, but there's periods where we've talked, not talked. There's periods where we've been super close, but it always comes back around. And it's, I was able to say, like, hey, I can appreciate that because having kind of like an anchor that while you drift, they drift a little too, but you stay together still. As long as your anchor is attached, then your boat's not totally cut off. You know, it's allowed to drift a little, and that's the challenge. But the thing is people kind of like getting an education, understanding that you were able to do that. The same with being with the same person for 19 years or maintaining a friendship for 43 is that you you've gone through something and shown that it was valuable to you over a period of time, never left it, never walked it away when you could have. A lot of people would have for many things on both sides. It takes a lot of acceptance and forgiveness. And that means, I think it says a lot. And those two things are two things that I've done longer than I've done anything else, whether it be healthcare, anything. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Nice, nice. I want to ask you a question.
Mhm.
I want you to think about the idea of an alpha male.
Mhm.
So just think about that for a while and try to keep track of, pay attention to what images pop into your head about alpha males and who they are, what they do, how they act, what's important to them, what motivates them. And then I want you also to think about yourself.
Mhm.
Do you think of yourself as an alpha male? Do you think of yourself as very different from an alpha male?
Um, yeah, I would say there's part of me that wants to say I would once describe myself as an alpha male, but if I think of the people of alpha males that I respect, and I look and ask myself, like, my self comparison to them, I would say, yes, I'm an alpha male within certain rooms, certain circumstances, certain situations, but definitely in other places, not. I think there's levels. Um, and I would say, yeah, in some places I'm alpha, some places I'm not. But to me, like, it doesn't matter. I look at it as kind of like if I were at a party not too long ago, and I think I did an episode talking about like how some people might look at everybody and go like, who's the alpha male, this and that, the other. I look around and go like, okay, like if a tornado happened or something happened and there was an emergency, like look at all these different people's skill sets and resources we could pull from because we all have different things. And and then when I think about being in a situation like that, and I think about myself having lost 64 pounds and trying to get in some sort of shape over the past couple of years, of going like, if you're in a group and you want to contribute, then the better you are as a male, the more work you put into yourself, then the more you can contribute. If you're in better shape, then you might be the one helping the women and children get out because they were at a party if there was a fire or something. If you're overweight and you can't help, then you're a liability. If you can't even help yourself, then you're an extra liability as a male. And so I think like if I'm in a situation like at a party, that's what I'm looking at and thinking about is kind of sizing up everything and then going, okay, it's never you until it's you, and nothing ever happens to you until it fucking does. And so you can be in an emergency situation real fast. And so I think kind of keeping some level of awareness and sussing things out. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's natural to size people up. I mean, I do. I mean, when I took my daughter and her friends to the movie in the mall, I'm very protective. If 4 children's responsibility lie to me, then I'm like a super alpha, like don't get close to them, don't look sideways at them, don't look weird. If I got 3 girls and 1 boy with me, like, I'm letting them have a good time. They're 11 and 12 or whatever. I'm taking them to the movies, but it's like, don't approach me with your bullshit. Don't be trying to sell me something. Don't be trying to distract me because I will get violent with you if I have to. And but I don't go around displaying that. I'm not gonna. If I'm holding superpowers, you're not gonna know it until they have to come out.
So, your concept of an alpha male then is maybe not entirely, but it has a large component of physicality to it. Being strong, being capable to take care of emergencies, help people get out of a burning building, that kind of thing.
Resourceful, thoughtful, intelligent. Those are the other components, but I think there does need to be a physical component. Can I carry my wife and daughter out of the fucking house if it catches on fire? We took care of a 97-year-old veteran who could not get himself out of the bed. And I had to sit there, I had to pick him up off the floor by myself, picking up dead weight. Somebody who's taller and bigger than you, very difficult. But I was able to do it. I was on my fitness journey then, and it was difficult. But this is something you have to think about. His hospital bed wouldn't fit through the door. So if something caught fire and I had to get him out of there, it was going to be all hands on deck. And I did an episode on that. And I think that's something you really need to look at. Like where I live, by the time the volunteer fire department gets here, it's going to be too late. And so I think as a male, you need a certain level of capability. Yes, absolutely, 100%. I mean, you told me my wife is incredible. If I believe that and I love my children, then I need to be as capable as possible to, if something happens to me, fine. But they're my primary responsibility and goal and why I do what I do. And so, if I had to leave them behind because I wasn't capable enough and had to live with that, I would feel shame. I would feel suicidal. I know this about myself. I would not be able to live with myself. So what can I do? I can do everything I can do. I can prepare myself. I exercise. Yes, today's my birthday, but I've exercised. I'm not taking a day off just because it's my birthday. So yeah, it's important to me. And I think it needs to be important to men. I mean, I just think it's facts.
Yes. Okay. So you have talked about your knowledge that it's important for you to feel good about yourself, to know that you pay attention to and you try to prepare to keep bad things from happening to the people you love.
Correct.
Is there any element in your concept of being a really good man, of being able to do everything you can do to make sure that really good things happen to the people that you love? And I'm talking about relationship wise, emotionally, philosophically, happiness wise? Do you see any alphaness or any particular importance in the male agenda, in the male psyche, in the male checklist of being able to make sure that you try to maximize every opportunity for good things to happen for
Absolutely.
your.
Yes, because, I told my daughter not too long ago, she asked me about an interview I did. I did an interview with Tomorrow Needs You, gray hair wearer Marcel Roston. Go check it out. But his daughter, his 16-year-old daughter, hung herself. And my daughter came in and asked me, who was I talking to, and blah, blah, blah. And I had to explain this to her, and I had to ask myself, when was an appropriate time to tell her the truth? And I told her, look, I don't know. I question this as your father, but I need to tell you. And I need to tell you because I'm telling you the truth. I want you to tell me the truth, no matter what. Because if we have the truth, then no matter what it is, we can try to work it and fix it. But if we don't have the truth, then we don't have accurate information to fix something. So it was kind of this thing of like, no matter what you ever go through, I'm here for you. You can always talk to me. And I said, I'm sure no matter what, he would give anything to have one more moment with her, one more conversation with her. And, I had to explain that to her. And so, I think that was kind of a place where it started. And then I make these emotional connections about what's important to me, why I do some of the things I do. And I have conversations with my daughter when, because I'm able to take her to school and pick her up to school because I'm not on this corporate grind. And so we have these moments. And that's how I can confidently say, what she put in the card, that she's gaining a concept of understanding, that I'm making that connection of what's important to me. Because no matter what, I want her to always be able to come back and, even if I always felt dumb about something I say or what I go, if something happens to me, she's always got these podcasts to come back and listen to and to remember me, to know what's important, to know why it was important, to know why I did some of the things I've done. And so I think, we didn't have that ability way back in the day, unless your parents or grandparents kept journals or memoirs. But, we're in an unprecedented time to do some of these things. And I think this is the beginning of change. This is how we change it, with conversations and perspective. And so, because I have to think about what kind of men do I want them to marry or partner with, should they decide to partner with men. They're free to do what they want, but yes, there's an expectation, I think, but all I can do, even for them as stepfathers, is be the example. When their boyfriends meet me and see me, they know, hey, I'm 49, but I'm decently fit, and I'm a determined individual. I can be nasty if I need to be. I don't like to be. I try not to be. I err on the side of love. I think love is the undercurrent and the answer. But love is a universal language, but so is violence. Everybody understands it.
Very interesting. Very interesting. When we first started talking about alpha males, and then I asked you to think of yourself and the ways in which you are the same or different from an alpha male. You took a little while to answer that last question, and you were thinking it over carefully. And I wonder if you may have felt any degree of reluctance or even shame to acknowledge Yeah, in some ways, I'm really not an alpha male.
I don't feel shame about saying I'm not. I would actually probably feel more shame about saying I am, maybe, because I think sometimes it can be considered toxic. Although, although when I think of alpha males, I don't think of it in terms of toxic. I think of it in terms of like if you were to look at the internet, there's going to be like fake alpha males that just, people who spew bullshit. And then I think there's probably real alpha males who might just be regular guys who are just good up, straight up people who have regular jobs. Maybe they're in regular industry, but they're fit, they're capable, they're prepared, they're good family men, good fathers, um, good to their community. That's what I think of when I think of alpha.
Okay. And so you've just listed 4 or 5 or 6 characteristics of, being good in the community, being good fathers, um, that are important for men to be, and important for men to be able to do and to draw on and to contribute when it's needed. What would you think of the idea of, instead of making the alpha male as our idea of the ideal man,
Mhm.
we instead still keep the idea of the alpha male,
Mhm.
but add 25 other letters
Mhm.
to
Like
the
what?
capabilities, and start thinking about being proud of being alphabet males.
Mm, yeah, yeah. Like, and that's kind of what I was saying. Like, I think like where you're at, context in a room, levels. Like let's say when I talk about alpha male and maybe having qualities, and I say like a good leader. Like let's say like I think of like Jocko or somebody like that, somebody who takes input but also gives out output. Um, a leader of somebody who is not trying to flex, but they're, you know, trying to hit all the areas. So it's like if I were there and I'm being led, then I might be alpha in some regards. Like when I'm the leader, when I was managing the clinic, I could be the alpha male or the lead physician, you know? And so it's like depending where you're at. But it's like, yeah, you might have to refer to your beta role, but it's like where are you in the context of the team, the situation, and what you're going to contribute to whatever it is you're undertaking, whatever puts you in this situation, But I think everybody has something to contribute. And so, yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking about.
I like how you're thinking, and where your inputs come from. Um, is it possible, do you think, that you might not be alpha in this situation, and you might even feel like you're beta or some other letter in a particular situation, but knowing, sort of like you're at a party,
Mm-hmm.
as you mentioned, you're at a party and we all have different capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really have a problem with not being an alpha male, like, MacGyver or
Mm-hmm.
something, you know, who can build a helicopter from utensils in the kitchen, because MacGyver is going to be alpha on that. You trust MacGyver. MacGyver trusts you, and if you need something and you don't have it, MacGyver is going to help you get it, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, when we can stop thinking about whether or not we're alpha male, and either we are on or off, and either yes or no, we can all trust each other that we're all going to help each other to the best of our abilities, and we're all going to respect each other.
Yeah, I'm aware of what I can contribute, and that's the thing is like I know I'm humble enough to know my limitations, and I think it's kind of one of those things of like if you ask me for something, I would maybe say yes, no, maybe so. Like when people say, "Can you do me a favor?" I say maybe. Sometimes I say I don't do favors on the clock, but it's like it depends. Like what does it entail? I don't know. Is it in my wheelhouse? Is it something I'm willing to do? Do I know about it? Like, give me some context. But it's like, I'm humble enough to know my limitations. Therefore, it's kind of one of those things of going, I know what I can contribute. So I'm always maybe looking for what can offset my contribution and fill in the gaps that I don't have, you know?
Okay. Yes, this is all great. So, one of the worst, well, maybe I shouldn't load with my values here, but um, what what do you think? Well, there is no person anywhere who is really great in everything.
Right.
Nobody can do that.
No.
Um, I would like to talk about the problem of the person who really doesn't feel that they are alpha in anything. And so they sort of become, in a way, dangerous
Yeah.
because they pretend to be alpha in something that they're not really. And so if we rely on them to be really good at this and they're not, that's a liability. So they've
Yeah.
created a danger there.
Hmm.
Um,
That's almost the problem with the way technology is advanced so fast is that any we all have the same information available, but we don't all have the same experience or IQ and know what to do with the information, how to process it, how to parse it out. And therein lies the problem is just because somebody has the information does not mean anything. And this is kind of where experience comes in. I mean, yes, experience accounts for a lot. You know, I mean, you're not, it's never you until it's you. You've never been in that situation until you've been in that situation. I mean, I've been in, you know, let's say a couple of hospital stories that, let's say, made the news. Um, you know, my grandfather went missing for 18 hours one time, and we were suspects on 12 acres. So it's never you until it's you. And so, yeah, experience, I think, counts for something because you either know what to do, what not to do. Um, and somebody else's experience can count for it too, because you can look at them and go, ooh, that wasn't a good outcome. I probably shouldn't do that.
yep, great. Um, do you see the idea of integrity involved in any of the, I don't know, many emotions or pluses and minuses or threats or opportunities
Yeah.
involved in men thinking about, you know, who they are, what their value is, their ability to contribute. The idea here I want to talk with you about is, you know, the idea of the mask that many men feel the need to wear
Yeah.
about
I see
how,
it like when you see like that, when I was talking about like fake alphas or you see these fake influencers, like there's some videos I absolutely get a kick out of. But, you know, while I get a kick out of them, there's some truth in it to some of it that addresses kind of what you were saying about is this dangerous to these people are putting a mask on and selling bullshit through a filter to young people who are one day going to be the people contributing, making the decisions of this country to take care of us as older people. And my daughter, as a citizen, my daughters. And so and all the people I love and care about. So yes, people who are selling bullshit, snake oil salesmen, fake alpha males who are roided out and selling fake supplements and selling these young kids that it's all about this lifestyle and money and et cetera, et cetera. They've touched nothing on integrity as the most important thing. What are they doing what are they doing not behind the post? I mean, if they're fucking scamming you, then they're not contributing anything except to themselves. They're not teaching you anything. Probably the real people out there with integrity and contributing are people we don't even know about. The people showing up at soup kitchens and volunteering and under the bridge doing cookouts, and we have no idea who they are. You know, yes, it's important. And I was listening to a podcast today, Modern Wisdom, and talking about this, and they had talked about something like about promotion of like people getting promoted, and something about like if you do 80% of the work and then spend 20% of the time promoting it, the people in that group got further ahead than people that maybe did more work with no promotion. They're like, if you're doing something good, you got to tell people about it. And I think that's important nowadays more than ever, because if all young people are being bombarded with is fake snake oil salesman bullshit, then they don't know or believe that the good people are out there or that it's possible. And so, you know, part of my podcast is showing that others that, hey, you're not alone. It is possible. Maybe you just need a perspective change. And, you know, like I always say, 20, 30 years ago, being a podcaster wasn't even a thing that you could do when I was growing up to even answer. But there were so many things that seemed impossible, be it a musician, a comic, this, that, the other, mostly things in the arts. But now we're allowed in a way that artists now have so much independence and can put their stuff out there, be it a podcast or their music, and they're not confined by the constraints of the business and the system. And yeah, and you know, so I think you're starting to see, because those models, there was a lot of not integrity in those models, was business people taking advantage of artists and their art, using it to make themselves money, and now artists have their own control. And so yeah, I think it's hugely important that people who are doing good, because this is just the world we live in, like it or not. So it's going to get seen unless you don't have a phone or something, or just do a flip phone. But you're still not immune from it, whether it's YouTube or this or that, the other. So, you know, you can get your AI can learn you algorithm. If you can get positive things in your feed, at least it's being positive people. But it is interesting because you can go down the road of other stuff. I mean, these people know what young men want to hear. And if, man, yeah, I don't know that I want the clowns running the world.
What do you think young men want to hear?
I could not tell you. That's interesting. Trying to think. I don't know that I've had. Be interesting. I should ask our oldest daughter. I mean, her boyfriend does like some medical stuff. They work in the medical, and so, but I don't know. Never on a long-term level. I don't know. I don't. hmm. Yeah, it would be interesting to find out. I don't know what young people want nowadays, but from what I see around me with my eyes, let's say if I'm out Ubering, um, the people, if I look out in the world, I don't know, maybe I see confusion, because I feel
That's what
like,
they're.
I don't know. I mean, I come from a time where things were more straightforward in the 80s and 90s, and we've gone through all these things of things you can and cannot say. And I think young men are confused and the rules keep changing, and um, free speech, not free speech, what's postable, what's not, what's offensive, what's not. Um, Mixed
So, Richard,
messages of masculinity and
let's not confine ourselves
okay.
to what's postable and what's not postable, what they can say and what they can't say, and
I would think they would want to hear it's going to be okay.
it's going to be okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's probably really the bottom line. That you're
you're
going
going to
to
be
be
okay.
fine.
You're going to be
You're going to be
okay.
fine.
Yep.
Um, so I guess the question then would be, what do they have doubts about? Why are they doubting that everything is going to be okay? What are they afraid is going to be the outcome for them?
Hmm. Well, if I were a young person looking at the landscape, man, the world has been nuts. Between, I mean, look at just anything going on between Harvey Weinstein, P. Diddy, Epstein, all in the past 5 years. You look at all the sexual allegation type stuff, and then things even coming back. You see a lot of resurgence of people coming out with things that have happened years and years ago, and more people being accused of this and that, the other, much years later. Um, I would say that's got to be a huge concern for young people, young men. The dating
In
scene.
the dating scene. Oh, so are you thinking that they're worried about doing something bad or being accused of doing something bad?
Probably being
what do you?
accused.
I'm sorry. Say it again.
I would say probably being accused.
Okay. So false allegations are a big concern
Oh
for
yeah,
young people.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So in the late 1800s, let's say,
Hmm.
a young girl who wanted to be a doctor would um, probably have a lot of concerns about how to tell her parents that she wanted to be a doctor
Yeah,
and that she was not going to be a wife and a mother. Well, she might be a wife and a mother, but that wasn't going to be her only thing. She was going to be, her primary goal was to become a doctor. And that would have been regarded as somewhat unusual for a girl to want to be a doctor. It would especially be unusual for a girl to want to be a lawyer, because if the expectation of girls in the late 1800s was that they are loving and kind and sweet and gentle, and they wear pink and they are frilly, and that's what girls are at their
working as
essential.
chefs. Hey, working as chefs, I came up in kitchens a lot. And there was a time in the 90s when it wasn't prevalent that women worked on the line as line cooks and in the kitchen as chefs, which is so crazy because there was a time and place when they were homemakers and did all the cooking. Yet,
Yep.
and I don't know if it's because it takes on that militaristic, regimented form of hierarchy and structure that kind of was the barrier bottleneck to entry or hesitancy. But I can remember girls coming on the line and cooking with girls on the line. And now it's like you have some of the best chefs are female. And but yeah, this was in the mid 90s. It's in late 90s. It just wasn't as prevalent. And that's so weird because I have a friend. I don't think it was as much. She's about 10, no, she's 13 years younger than me, but we worked in kitchens together. And it wasn't abnormal for her to go to like chef school, culinary art school. But 10 years prior, it might have been a little bit different. It wasn't as abnormal to me because I had kind of walked away from the culinary world, but it was one of those skills I had in my bag and I just needed a job and ended up with one there at a country club. And but the last time I'd been in that field, it wasn't as normal. which I kind of find odd. And when you said that, it's like, yeah, they expect you to do something, whether it's like be an executive assistant for a CEO at the hospital, like a desk job. That seems more normal. A court reporter, the typey purpose person in the court. Do you ever see mails of those?
Not many, not many.
See, I was a
So
typist. I went to UIL for typing in the ninth grade on an IBM Selector 2, and I always thought that that was kind of maybe people looked at me weird because I excelled at bookkeeping and typing. And then when I went in the Navy, I was a yeoman, which is a secretary. But I've always been skilled. I worked for the IRS. I'm a skilled typist and 10 keyist, and I mean that's just my skill set.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
feel less manly for it. I just these are the things I know about. I mean, I was the guy who received your Amcross message to cut you orders to go back for duty. I'm the one who was handing out your paycheck in your mail. All that kind of stuff. You know, somebody's got to keep your records. Um, it didn't mean I was any less manly. That was just my contribution to the team and where I excelled.
Okay, so the idea of manliness is in play here, and
Mhm.
we were talking about what do young boys want? What are they afraid of?
Mhm.
Uh, what would they say they want if they were free to tell us what they really want?
Mhm.
What do you think of the possibility that a lot of young men today like what they see
Mhm.
in people like Richard Kraft? And they recognize that Richard Kraft is not the is not the most typical kind of man you see these days.
Yeah, probably not.
But they wish that there were a lot more Richard Krafts in the world because they would like to be like Richard Kraft in that he prioritizes what's really important and he's true to himself. He's true to the people he loves. He has people who love him. He loves them too. Um, and what boys really want is to be the equal of girls, in that girls have the ability to go out and try to kick butt and make a lot of money if they want, but they also have the ability to prioritize work-life balance,
Mhm.
which is a phrase that did not exist until women became big time in the world of work.
That's interesting. I never thought of it that way.
Boys want what girls want, except we have to move in opposite directions for us both to become equal. And what boys really want is the most important things in life:
Love.
relationships and love. Yes, relationships and love. And what they keep hearing from all of the people who talk about the boy crisis and why all these bad things are happening to boys and why boys aren't going to school and why they're committing suicide and why they're dropping out and why they're sitting in their parents' basements playing video games, that it's all because they are, I don't know, flawed in some way.
Mm.
When really what they want, if anybody were to ask them, would be to say, I want to contribute. I want to be
Mhm.
loved. I
Mhm.
don't want to just go to school so that I can become a petroleum engineer and make a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's not what I want, but that's what you expect of me. That's what you're saying will make me an alpha male,
I
and I
mean,
don't
think
want
about
to
it.
be an
Have
alpha male.
think about it as young men, especially when I think about this and I think about kind of the follow along and the more independence and kind of when you said sitting in the basement, like playing video games, I just think like we have this different world. They're choosing that over this other thing. But before video games and the basement was a thing and computers were a thing, like when I was growing up, think about how many let's say parties or pastor parties you might have went to that you really didn't want to go to, but you just went to it because the alternative was you didn't want to be sitting in the basement. Well, now these people are, maybe they're making the conscious standoff decision is, I don't want to go to the party and drink and get in fights and do that bullshit because it's not contributional to anything. I never liked going to that stuff, but you go every once in a while just to, I don't know, because there's nothing else to do, or maybe you're expected to, or you're figuring it out. You're figuring out, do I like this or not? So maybe they're taking that stand, but it's like, but now we have come along to a place where you have seen like professional video gamers and stuff, and people in these different arenas where the quote unquote nerds are being celebrated for their contribution to technology and robotics and drones and all that kind of stuff that we use in modern warfare. So I think that's a great thing that it's giving them that something that they're the alpha males of that, you know? Just because they may not be the physical specimen of a Navy SEAL or something, but they're creating these things that have to be used in tandem with the Navy SEAL to make the whole thing happen.
And so the question would be, what do
Find
they
your
want to make? What do they
find your
want to make
alpha.
happen?
Yeah,
Huh?
yeah. Find what it's like. You have to find something that ignites you enough to where you feel like you're contributing. In that's kind of, you can contribute, and maybe one day you can be the alpha in that area, and there's
Well,
levels to it. It's like me understanding that my identity wasn't tied to what I did as a caregiver person working in healthcare for 12 years, because my identity was crushed. I had to logically go, look, I'm kind, caring, and compassionate. That's what matters. I love to serve. How I serve just takes a different form. I did not want to go back and serve in a corporate healthcare. I turned down a job with Department of Corrections because I didn't want to do that, doing the medical there. I didn't want to relocate. And so, it was about finding something and going, I'm still kind, caring, and compassionate, but I can talk. I got all these skills from interviewing people for jobs. I can talk to people, interview people, give people a different perspective. And through a podcast, I can reach more people than I ever would have as a manager, director, VP of a hospital, because I would have gotten further away from the actual patients and the thing that gave me the joy, serving. And so it's find something like that and pursue it. And then perhaps you're ignited enough and you become the alpha in that area, whether it's robotics, coding, no matter what, get around the right people, and be okay with being a beta. These are the learning stages of it. This is the curiosity moment. This is where the fun happens. The other thing's just the thing. I mean, real alpha people probably wouldn't, I don't know. They're not out there flying it. They're just there. It's like the cool person. They don't know that they're cool. They just exist. They just are, because they're comfortable and confident. They know their limitations. They know where they stand. They know where they need to work. They know where they need to improve. And they're taking actionable steps to do it. Somehow, some way, whether it's 1%, 2%, they have integrity. Doesn't matter what's posted. It matters what's not posted. Doesn't matter what you did in the gym. It's what you don't do in the gym. The hours outside the gym.
So the idea of contributing comes up a lot here when we talk about, we're talking about men and boys. We want to contribute. We want to have value. We want to be appreciated. The traditional script for boys to be valued and appreciated and to contribute was the idea of contributing money.
Yeah.
And now they still want to be valuable and they want to contribute, but contributing money doesn't have the essential component. It's not as essential now because girls are making their own money.
Mm-hmm.
And so wouldn't it be a good idea if we helped boys feel good about all of the other ways that they can contribute to the people they love, and at the same time, help girls and women recognize and appreciate how important those non-monetary contributions are.
Yes.
That men and boys are sometimes literally dying to make.
How many women plumbers have you seen?
Say what?
I said, how many women plumbers have you seen? Who want? I mean, well, like let's say like septic tank cleaners. You don't probably see a lot of women signing up to do that job. You see men who need a job and are willing to do what's necessary, be it for themselves or someone. They're not going down in a tunnel full of shit for shits and giggles.
Well, let's think about a fellow who is going to take that job.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably not going to be making a ton of money.
Nope.
So he's probably not going to be valued a lot by a woman who is looking to him only for his money. But maybe
if she has a septic tank.
Huh?
If she has a septic tank, she'll value him.
Well, yeah. But, just once a year. So wouldn't it be good if this fellow who figures his best way to contribute right now is to work in the pumping up people's septic tanks, and we really shouldn't put down,
No, you need them.
the value and necessity of that. We just don't pay them much.
Yeah.
We just don't pay them much.
Teachers, there's a lot of people that don't pay enough.
Yes. Well, let's just talk about
there's people that they pay too much.
Yes. Let's just talk about men outside of being paid anything.
Why are we using that as the measure of everything?
Yes. Let's just forget about men making money and their ability to contribute in non-monetary ways. Because that fellow who is going to be making $12.50 an hour, pumping out septic tanks, might be really worth $50 an hour, depending on, how can you measure it, but he might be worth $50 an hour as a daycare worker. But we don't want to talk about just what their money making capabilities are. What if he was valued by a woman to be a really irreplaceable asset to the family because he's so good with his kids? And the man and the woman together have these kids. She wants to be a lawyer. He doesn't want to be a lawyer at all, but he does want to be sort of a coach, sort of a teacher, sort of a father, and he contributes that way. I mean, 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago, women who were ready, willing, and able and happy to be full-time homemakers, taking care of the kids, taking care of the house, doing all of the tasks that have to go into running a family at the home front. They didn't really have to sell themselves on their value. Yes, they weren't paid a lot of money, but men were looking for women like that.
Well, and the thing is, I think probably the value of that somewhere became evident. I'm sure, I don't know, in the 80s or 90s when you started hearing about people getting divorced and, depending on what state you live in, and the woman gets half, well, why? She didn't contribute, or, and then a judge or a lawyer comes up with a figure and says, no, doing your laundry, your cooking, your cleaning, taking care of the house, this and that, the other, what she would be able to do outside of that, the earned money she would have been able to make. Yes, there is a value on it, whether you see it, acknowledge it or not.
Right, right. And so we were aware of a woman's contribution to a family,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't pay her anything during the marriage, but if there was a divorce, she got compensated for everything she had invested in that family.
Mm-hmm.
Would a man who does the same thing except in the other direction and decides he doesn't want to be a lawyer, he's going to quit his job as a lawyer or as an insurance salesman or as an accountant or whatever it was, and he decided he hated and he doesn't want to keep doing that, and he's going to accept the woman's suggestion that she would like to be a lawyer, but she needs some help at home.
Mm-hmm.
She needs an equal partner at home because she doesn't want to be worrying about the kids all day, especially not when she's in court arguing an important case. The man has
that counts
tremendous
for a lot.
the man has tremendous non-monetary value
Yeah.
to her. But if there is a divorce, if she decides she loves somebody else, or he decides he loves somebody else, or whatever reason there's a divorce, could that man expect to be treated fairly for what he contributed to the family? Or would he? Huh?
I said, like, in terms of things that you've seen in whether it be court cases, maybe readable ones, and stuff like this, I think that we've started to maybe acknowledge that, like in some marriages where the woman ends up having to pay the husband alimony or something, that it's, yeah, I think maybe you're starting to see glimpses of, you would call equality if you call the other way, and equal and opposite equality. Yeah.
So what comes to my mind right now is that you a few minutes ago talked about the possibility that boys had the idea of being subjected to false allegations of bad behavior very much on their minds, that they feel very liable, vulnerable, at risk, in jeopardy for their future happiness, at how easy it is to make an allegation, and how even if you're exonerated, there's the suspicion
well, because of the social media culture and the world we live in, and news kind of being in a sales type business. I mean, regardless of a business is designed to make money. So yes, they have to sell you things that you will read, and therefore, often it's, I think of like, there was a punter or something who, I think it was the Buffalo Bills or the Chargers, and got accused of rape or something, and got like kicked off the team and had to, he finally ended up back in the NFL years later, but it totally derailed and everything. And it's this whole thing of, I mean, some of your prime years, like, it's messed up.
Yeah. Yeah. And so a man who thinks about giving up his advantages in the world of business to pursue what he really wants, which is an emotional life, a relational life, a nurturing life, being involved in really close and warm and loving relationships with his kids. he would like to take the plunge, give up
Mhm.
his job, devote himself to being a full-time parent,
Mhm.
maybe with a little side hustle at
Yeah.
home to make a little money. Um, but he can't be sure that he's going to be treated fairly if a divorce occurs, because he's probably not going to get a whole lot of alimony and community property
Mhm.
if the woman is able to say, oh, no, he beat me all the time,
Mhm.
or he sexually molested the children all
Mhm.
the time. You know, the stereotypes that young boys might be perceiving they are vulnerable to could be a really demoralizing, dispiriting, worrisome factor that they just really can't talk about.
I think
Because,
maybe they don't want to participate at all.
yeah, yeah, it could be. I mean, if you're not going to be treated fairly, why play the game?
Well, I see when you were talking about that, and then I have this thought of like let's say you're in this situation, and regardless of if I did this or not, my wife wanted to be with me or not, I still would prioritize my wife and daughter over myself, whether they're with me or not. Um, but like when you brought in the other part of that, there could be possible unfair treatment on a split due to allegations and stuff. I mean, yeah, that's those kinds of things that you see that are happening that people are, I don't know, like, yeah, it's interesting because my wife and I've been together so long, and I'm the ex-husband and I are close. His birthday was yesterday, and our birthdays are a day apart, but we've been friendly, close, tight for the 19 years, or probably not that long, but a good 15, 16. But the point of it is that, I understood going into this relationship that look, with the other girls, he's always going to be their father. Um, they're not, because two adults can't get along, they're not the thing to be fought over. They're not things. They still have to be raised. And so this thing needs to work between all three of us because it's not about, it's taken us all. There's been periods of success and less success and more success, each as a family, but it takes a village. We all contribute what we can. Um, and it's kind of always been that way. And I think people thought it was weird in the beginning and couldn't understand it. But I went in it with this idea of, because I'm very much philosophical in that utopian idea of, what are we doing with children? We're trying to raise good people, good children. We're trying to turn them into good citizens, thoughtful, compassionate, kind people that are thoughtful of the environment and other people and that want to serve and help the community and contribute to some of the problems we have in the world and solve things and make life better. And so when I think you just think of it different. And so when you address it from that way and going, I don't care what everybody else around me says, I'd never be friends with my wife's ex and all this bullshit. And I'd never, I've spent the night there. We go have breakfast together, all kinds of stuff. I've broken down on the side of the road, we and the kids, and he was the first one there. And he stayed on the side of the road with me, and they took his car and left. And we rode in the wrecker together. It takes us all. And the people, they've turned out well adjusted and good, and we all get along, and we're all together. And um, people, they treat, they, I don't know, they let the hatred for the other person, they bring the kids into it, they forget it's together, and they forget they got this thing. And um, it's like no accountability, no responsibility for their part of fucking up the relationship or what they brought to it, I guess you could say, because it didn't just fail usually because of one side. There's components in there, but you need to be accountable, take responsibility, and then whatever you created together, fucking address it in the right way. and think about the outcome you want to have, which is something that's well adjusted, that's understanding, that's because if you model that and you show that, then they're gonna either they'll go the total opposite way or they're gonna imitate it and do exactly what you did and end up in those shitty relationships and repeat the cycle. And I just don't want that. I feel like we're the generational curse breakers. Like it's time to take those traumas and things. And I think the world's in a place where maybe we can change through conversation. And if not, we can at least get the conversations on the record as an idea for people to go back when they're brainstorming and look at it later and go, maybe this is an idea that works for society, or we need more of, or hey, this is worth trying because whatever else is we're doing in the world or is going on is not working. Because think of all the people who probably looked up to P. Diddy and now he's in court for this stuff. And it's like, okay, so you had all these kids who looked up to this stuff, and it's like the whole time it was a wolf in sheep's clothing and you had no idea. And so I think, yeah, truth, conversation, perspective, and accountability and acknowledgement that um, there's a lot of people who benefited in covering all that up, and probably for some capitalistic monetary gain. So anytime you're going to buy something, purchase something, somebody's trying to sell you something, you probably need to ask them what's in it for them. Why are they pushing for it so hard? Who's to benefit from this? Um, Really, you're the consumer on most things. You should be the beneficiary. So if somebody's pushing you too hard, more than likely it's manipulation and for their benefit. So don't be afraid to say no. You go into something, you don't have it, so you already don't need it. If it's a value add, then I always say, like, keep your wants low. It's nice to have, yes, like, yes, would it be nice to have a brand new vehicle? Sure. But I have a vehicle with no car payment. And that's good for me. That allows me to be the father and husband I want to be because I don't have a car payment. Because I don't have a car payment, I don't have to bring in as much monetarily, which allows me to bring more emotionally and spiritually and have these conversations with my daughter that she writes me things that can make me cry. But yeah, it's all about perspective and what do you want and what do you need. If you keep your needs and wants low because you don't care what other people think and stay true to you, if you have an idea of love being the underlying current that sees it through, then you follow that when in doubt. Because the other way leads to violence, and that leads to divorce, incarceration, and everything else. And there was a point a couple of years ago after I got laid off. I mean, there was a point I was using alcohol and I had to quit. That's why I'm 2 years sober. No alcohol because things were not going well. I was probably on the brink of divorce. I was probably not going to be able to see my daughter, my wife, and that was just it wasn't going to happen for me. There was no way I was going to be away from my daughter, and I stopped, and I changed, and yeah, I had to take accountability and understand what I was contributing to that. And the alcohol was a contributing factor to that, and I stopped it. And it could have went the other way. And I could that's why I always say I'd be dead or incarcerated if it weren't for my wife. But there's a large part of me. She couldn't change me. It took me taking the accountability and the hard look in the mirror. And that's what a lot of people, young people, got to look at. Look at yourself, give the assessment. Like, go to the gym. What can you bench? What can you, I mean, not for that kind of purpose, for that strength part of going like, oh, if I get in a relationship with a person, can I be useful to them? Can I be a value add? If we get caught in floodwaters around here and I need to make my wife or girlfriend, partner feel safe or rescue them or keep them safe, like, what can I do to, you have to work on becoming the person you want to be. And then hopefully you will be fortunate enough to run into the person that is for you. But you need to be the person who would attract a high value woman. You need to be a high value man. That's what you want. But high value in those other areas, not just, I'm not talking about money, because that's kind of fake. That's where, you know, you can see if you see the guy with all the money or the guy who's unattractive or overweight and he's got the supermodel girlfriend because he's got the money, then you should know, young men, it's because of the money.
Yeah.
But that's superficial.
Right. So maybe we wrap up with this idea that it would be very beneficial to everyone, men, women, kids, boys, girls, if we explored, brainstormed, blue skied, even though it's not typically the way things have been done in the past, if we really appreciated and took advantage of all of the value that men can provide to the people that they want to provide for, and not just in the old way of men being the providers. It's not just about the money. We can do so much.
If we acknowledge
more.
it, we'll see more. Because what do men like?
Exactly.
They want to be acknowledged that they're contributing. You know what?
Yes.
What means more than all the other stuff? Just a simple acknowledgement of like, I appreciate what you're contributing to the team. You are valued. That means
Yes.
more than I don't want your fucking foam fingers or your pizza party. You know, if you can't give me a raise, which we all can use because we all know you never pay anybody enough. So if you can't do that, then like truthful, honest, genuine appreciation will do.
Yes. Yes.
If I can feel that, then I'm happy.
There was an article in Forbes magazine I came across that maintains, based on studies of business and corporations, that the number one thing that keeps people happy on the job is not the raise, it's not the money, it's the A word, appreciation. I just want to be appreciated. And man, I think that might be the key word for men and boys, because there is so much evidence that we're not really appreciated. We're sort of being depreciated. That is really creating problems.
Like boats and vehicles.
Say what was
We're
that?
like boats and vehicles. We're being depreciated.
Yes, that's right. Yes. Well, we're being like a country's currency.
Tax write-offs for some depreciations.
Yeah. We're being treated like assets or liabilities, rather than as human beings. And that really needs to change. And people like you are leading the change. And we need a lot more people like you to lead the change, because there are a whole lot of people who really aren't courageous enough.
I feel like I'm an odd man out. I feel like people probably go, he's spouting some hippie woo-woo bullshit. But I don't know. Like, to me, there's I don't know. I don't know. There's things that remain true to me that are truths of, 20 years ago, of things that have remained constant in my life, whether it be the relationships, some of my beliefs, and they revolve around that, and the love is the undercurrent. But when I'm the truest, best version of myself during these decades, but I still feel like it's far-fetched. I still feel like we're in a world that you're just competing with the fake stuff that's always this capitalistic idea of money being the main thing. Like, I don't know, like, there's been so many people, like, you can hear people with money tell you, no, that's not the thing. But somehow people still cannot not go for it, or not like touch the damn hot doorknob or whatever it is. Like, they still, like, no matter what, it's a terrible idea. Yet everybody does it. there's still some inherent, I mean, maybe because it means security, security means clarity. And when you say clarity in terms of like maybe generational wealth, knowing like my daughters would be without, not have to work, not be without, have to be without a man or whatever. They could just live their life. So I get it from that term, but you know, the thing is really everything should be about day and process, because the end goal, like the byproduct, either you're going to either you're going to be financially compensated for the things you provide to the world, which is a summation of your daily habits, or you're not. You will get a level of compensation according to the level of effort and habits you choose and how you choose to contribute to them, but that's not the important thing, nor is necessarily the outcome, because we all want to think about the outcome. We all try to do things for the outcome, but really the magic is in the day and the day process, which becomes your outcome becomes a byproduct of that. You know, I just started exercising 2 years ago and sticking at it consistently, and now I look 64 pounds lighter and different. You know, but I never said, oh, I want to look like that. I never had a mental image. I mean, maybe a little bit. It just looked better. But yeah, you know, I don't know. That's what I've been thinking a lot about lately. But yeah, I think I definitely think I don't know. I wish more people saw it, I guess. I wish more people were a little more receptive, or could just drop all the fake acts and go, yes, we have a fucking problem, and we need more, and we need better, and we need to do better, and this is the way we're going to do it. And fuck it, let's give it a try, because nothing else seems to be working.
Yeah. Yeah. We need more of the important stuff, and less of the stuff that people are trying to sell us because they got to keep the economy running. All right, Richard, I got to run.
All right, man. I appreciate you spending some time with me today on my birthday, and it was
a real pleasure. It was very much of a pleasure, Mr. 49. And look, I can assure you, you don't need to dread your next birthday.
I look forward to it.
I can give you personal testimony to the fact that there is life after 50.
You're gonna be okay, just like the young people want to hear.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm gonna keep on those daily habits and make sure that, you know, I'm gonna just keep going. I'm gonna make 50 even better than 49.
I don't doubt that.
That's my goal.
I think you're moving on up.
Yeah, I'm trying. Well,
right.
As I always say, go out and be the person that you would want to meet.
There you go.
All right.
Good,
you have a good
one.
Good
for you. Take care, Richard. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
You too. You're welcome.
Asteroid of fear.